As far as means are concerned, it is weak. And once you are weak, the strong are always going to eat you up. The West does not look at India as a honest group. Very categorically, very openly in public stated that their aim is to weaken Russia. Taiwan, as long as it's not in Chinese control, Chinese are stuck on their coast.
Namaskar and Jai Hind. In this session of Samvad, we have with us Major General Bhupesh Jain, former Defence Attache of India to the United States of America and Canada, and a legendary Special Forces officer. Welcome to Samvad, sir.
Thank you, Mayank. Always pleasure talking to you, and great to see you doing what you're doing.
Thank you, sir. So in this discussion, we are trying to basically discuss issues of geopolitics and strategic culture in the country. So to start off with, it's been 6 months since this special operations, as Putin calls it, in Ukraine. But in reality, the invasion of Ukraine started. And 6 months is a long time to understand the whole thing in perspective. So what geopolitical factors you feel have led to this invasion, sir?
Mayank, let me start with the post Second World War, this Bretton Woods constructions, which was constructed by the victors, and all the P5s were part of it. So if you see what the world you are living in was designed based on the victory in Second World War. But you got to grant them they gave you peace till the end of Cold War. But in geopolitics, essentially it's means which help you reach the ends. Ways are found using means. If you look at the breakup of erstwhile USSR, it broke up primarily because it no more had the means to the ends that it wanted to retain. It resulted in breakup virtually of entire eastern component of eastern USSR or erstwhile eastern USSR, and subsequently what was left was Russia. Now, that free, the NATO and the Warsaw were eyeball to eyeball, but that freed up that space occupied by a country who was seen hostile to them. So therefore, it gave the public opinion for NATO to make use of space. Now, I think people are aware of that there are 3 operational factors, in fact 4 now: space, time, and force. Post 1991 Gulf War, even information has come up as an operational factor. Space and time is very. Now that freed up space very deliberately in time was eaten up by NATO to close in with Russia. So consequently, Russia found space which gave it protection from Napoleonic threats, Hitler's threat, now eaten away by NATO. And there it was, very close to Russian heartland, which is nothing but which is eastern part of Russia, which is mostly European. But that, Ukraine was somehow, although promised, but was not brought into NATO. And it's that threat which over a period of time was unacceptable as long as Ukraine was not part of the West. But post-Maidan revolution in 2014, you can see The space even in Ukraine was closing up, and Russia was finding itself with forces inimical to its interest 200 miles from Moscow. Now, this, in my view, is essentially what has caused it, and it's Russian. You can see Russian naivety in believing at that time that West will when they are weak, they will let go of them. Uh, Public opinion, erstwhile USS states they should ought to have been aware of. Russian apprehensions, while may be valid, but Russia has to understand that it is, as far as means are concerned, it is weak. And once you are weak, the strong are always going to eat you up. So, what you find 6 months down the line, West versus Russia, there is no comparison. As far as means are concerned, Russia is no match. So, lack of means, where it will end, you don't have to be very wise man to answer this question. In time, closed space will lead to the means will cause the force disparity, and information, influence, and public opinion is going against Russia. Where it will end to, it's very clear. It doesn't need, you don't need to do much of thinking on that. So, in my view, if you see from Operation Art perspective, if you look at the geopolitical situation, whatever names you can give to the invasion of Ukraine, one has to understand that this situation is futile as far as in the long run is concerned for Russian state. To the other part that we continue to, we often have looked at is what happens to this conflict? What exactly is going to happen? Now, if you see the United Nations was created by P5, but today in this battle, all 5 are participants. West may not be participant, but it precipitated the participation. US and UK have been vigorous precipitant of this conflict. And they are, by the way, they are supporting and providing weapons and equipment, and not now, since 2014. NATO is on record to say that they've been working with Ukraine since 2014. You look at America, the amount of money they have been pumping in, training that they've been pumping in, all the Warsaw Pact ammunition or weapons they could actually collect all over the Eastern Europe. They have pushed it, thereby creating a deficiency and creating a market for their weapons. Anyway, that's a separate subject in itself. So, if you see, it is a war between the victors of Second World War. So, who, therefore, is going to prevent or stop this conflict? There is no honest broker left. Who is people like Erdogan of Turkey or Israeli Prime Minister? They're very small players. Essentially, they help in allowing food grains to be exported out of Ukraine, primarily to ensure to counter the hunger part. As far as oil is concerned, you know what is going to happen. There is a question.
So to add to that question, sir, since we don't seem to be having any serious player to start the negotiations and stop this conflict, and with the Security Council members themselves embroiled in the whole conflict, taking sides on both sides, virtually taking sides. So can we expect a country like India which is respected by both sides, I believe. Can we expect a country like India to take the lead and do something about stopping this war?
Unlikely. You see, the West does not look at India as a honest broker. They are, if you see the Germans, the Americans, Germany in particular is trying to pressurize India. German foreign minister was recently in India, and if you go through his comments, they are looking at India to be taking their side. See, uh, look at the aim which uh, Lloyd Austin, U.S. Secretary of Defense, very categorically, very openly in public stated that their aim is to weaken Russia. And if you will, I later on will come to this part. You see, is it, if you look at from American perspective, they see that how wars bled them, and they look at this as an opportunity for the time being, bring Russia to a state where it is virtually of not much support or help to China when they actually need to counter Chinese rise. So I think it's a very high level game being played, and in that game, by the West wants a weakened Russia. Their main aim is to bleed Russia, simultaneously prevent collection of means. Though Russia is trying, it tries to sell gas, tries to sell fuel. Essentially, Second World War was fought for commodities and markets. What is being done? Depriving Russia of markets. And Chinese need markets for their growth. So they can go and help Russia to an extent beyond that. Russia all it provides is only one commodity, but it does not provide them with market. So Chinese are not going to be able to help them. Indians are not going to be able to help them. We simply do not have the kind of wherewithal in means. We may, you only can, India can provide me a broker provided the parties who are involved in conflict are looking for resolution. My argument to you, Mayank, is that West does not want this war to end. So there is the role of a mediator when one of the participant in the conflict does not want it to end because it believes it's winning. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Indian Prime Minister, particularly along with the Foreign Minister, who's fairly wise man in geopolitics, would make that mistake of going and offering their services for this particular scene. And UN is not seen as honest broker.
But the West could be getting into another conflict, not in the very near future, sir. I'm sorry, in the very near future, it could be getting into another conflict that is with Taiwan, China and Taiwan. So, I mean, this has been a very long-standing. China sees Taiwan as a matter of existence. They just believe that Taiwan is theirs and they should be taking it anytime they want. There has been a lot of incursions from the Chinese side. The Chinese Air Force has been intruding into the air defense identification zone of Taiwan. But suddenly we have seen that the tensions have been rising between USA and China over Taiwan. So what are the operational factors, I would ask, behind this rise in tension between these two nations?
You know, I wish when you flash this particular thing and put it on YouTube, you put a map of China, North Korea, South Korea, Russia, Japan, Taiwan, Manila, that is Philippines, and Vietnam, and encompassing entire South China Sea. See, China again is another power which came, of course, in 71 and 70s. It came into the United Nations, but well, they were part of, West was supporting. In fact, both Russia and China was helped immensely by the allies by supporting them with weapons, equipment, and technology. China is one of them. It's come into that part. It's the means to China have been provided by the West. The rise of China has been facilitated by the West. That's to Indians, that's very clear. Chinese have actually pursued and utilized. But if you look at the geography of China and you look east, sitting in Shanghai, you see on the north, you have South Korea, which is a US allies. You have then Japan. If you further come, you now look down straight south, you see Taiwan. And when you see Taiwan, further south Taiwan in the same line is Philippines. Now, and the only areas through which, and if you look at where Okinawa is, the entry for Chinese to Pacific is guarded by these land through these land routes. Now, Chinese is basically a factory of the world. It produces goods. It needs to trade. Trade can always be stopped by a hostile power which controls the sea. It needs sea. China has risen, and China has tried to break through that using Belt and Road Initiative in the near future and wherever it goes. But Belt and Road Initiative to any common man will tell you it was not about Belt and Road Initiative. It was essentially about creating allies, giving money, creating infrastructure, and making them winning them over to your side. That's about all. That's what they've done to Pakistan. They're trying to Bangladesh, and in some cases, it has led them to such a situation, such as Sri Lanka, where it finds itself. Now, it needs the sea lanes. Now, what is the reality of sea lanes? Both Atlantic and Pacific are American lakes. American aircraft carriers travel with impunity in South China Sea. You think China can send its aircraft carrier into Gulf of Mexico? No, it cannot. So if you see Taiwan, as long as it's not in Chinese control, Chinese are stuck on their coast. They can become 4 times the current size of their economy. They still will remain number 2 power in the world. So if China has to become, they need Taiwan. And in case they need Taiwan and it does not come to them peacefully, and as you see, you study repeatedly the way Taiwanese people think, the number of people who think that they can become part of China now is below 50%. So actually on ground, Taiwan has ceded away from China. The only way it can become part of China is by force, as was applied in Hong Kong. So Chinese, by forcibly changing the character of Hong Kong, have given a trailer as to what is in store for Taiwan. And a conflict by China against Taiwan plays into the hands of at least United States. Now, I am little apprehensive on the role of Germany in that, particularly as you see the impact of rising energy prices will have in this winters. So to my mind, this winters, as Russia has already said that they are going to stop gas supply through that pipeline which primarily comes to Germany, how it gets tackled will be the role of Germany will more crystallize. But I seriously suspect if you see the German minister's remarks in India about they wanted to differentiate between what happened on Indian-Chinese borders vis-a-vis what is happening in Ukraine. So they do not want to call Chinese action against India as a threat or an invasion or breach of the border, while as they would like to call that. So this is where I feel German actions are to be watched carefully. US is very clear. Germany may claim the same to the while it sits on the high table along in G7, but what it goes and says outside actually leaves me with certain doubts. Chinese suppression of its population in Tibet and Xinjiang has largely been ignored by the West. You see, even now, very soft kind of a report has been prepared by the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. And that too, she has released it while she's about to get out of the case.
Mm.
Even World Health Organization was incapable of addressing Chinese or calling their bluff during COVID time. So I believe West has been very complicit with in Chinese lab starting from Tiananmen Square. And the reason is very clear. West earns lots of money. So-called the money that Chinese are being earned, a portion or a significant portion is being also earned by the American companies or Western companies, if I may use the term. So I am not so sure that, and probably I'm not so sure that they will be so hostile to China, and I believe that China demonstrated post Nancy Pelosi that they put a block around Taiwan and nothing anybody did about it, other than saying a few kind words. They sorted out Hong Kong. There is not a squeak of all the guys they picked it and have dumped them inside the jails. What happens to Hong Kong and all the things they cite? What happens to the the decision of the United Nations body where Philippines had gone and the decision went against China? China simply ignored it. Even Philippines cannot implement it, and nobody in the world. So
So,
I'm not sure.
so that means China, the South China Sea could very soon be the China Sea, in effect, because the way they are
It is.
spreading their tentacles unchallenged. Sir, one final question, and I want a very brief answer because we're running short of time. Generally, we know time, space, and force as the operational art. You spoke of information as being the fourth one. Sir, could you just give a brief glimpse of how information is the fourth operational art? And this is my final question.
In brief, I would like to add to you that today, not its information is considered power. It's power because it helps gives you transparency and allows you to influence people's opinion, and people's opinion matters not only in democracies but even in autocracies. So information subtly used, called information operation, becomes influence operations, propaganda. You can call it any names. It is slowly emerging. Look at cyber cyberspace, so that information being pushed through cyber means encroaches into cyberspace. So it's actually not only information has started impacting space. After all, space is also in their mind. So the mental space and cyberspace is impacting space. You cannot function as a country if you cannot control your cyberspace, your economy, your electricity, your water, your education. Everything will go for a six. Information, in my view, has become, I would call it now, four operational factors: space, time, force, and information. And the first two being measurable, quantifiable, remaining two, it depends upon the imagination and the innovation of the user, how it uses.
Thank you, General Bhupesh Jain. Thank you for the insights. And we would like to have this because you have added very interesting future conversation with me about the information, because I believe this needs a whole discussion revolving around how information and influence is going to affect the future wars. We expect to have you very soon with us, sir. And thank you for your time and thank you for your insights. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you, man. Keep doing this good work. Always impressed with your ability to keep generating, you keep kind of rediscovering, innovating yourself. Very good. Excellent. Keep doing the work. Thank you.